evening, folks. Happy Labor Day weekend. And today we are doing the Factivist Report as usual. There's never a day off here. So this is the Factivist Report for September 4th, 2022. And here's Dave.
So here's what we're going to do. The beginning, we're going to do a little bit of coverage of the Biden transcript or of the Philadelphia speech. I am going to read most, if not all of it, because a lot of people couldn't watch it because the networks didn't want to play it because it was too political. They're in this for economic reasons, so whatever. Then after that, I am going to provide sources for you so you can do some research. Happy Labor Day. You're gonna have to do a little bit of work before you. We're gonna be covering candidates like we always do, but I want you guys to familiarize yourself with some of these. These are sources that journalists use, like the Cook Report. We'll go over it a little bit. And finally, there is something that you can do tomorrow, Labor Day, and beyond. The AFL-CIO is getting involved in a huge voter recruitment drive. And to me, this is good news. The unions need to get involved in this, need to politically get involved.
Yeah, as I mentioned to Dave, I seem to recall in the 60s, the unions being very involved in all of it. And the teachers' unions remain involved. They have stayed involved. But a lot of labor unions, other labor unions have kind of like taken a back seat. They need to step forward again. Maybe it took Trump to get them involved. But one other comment about the news media, that's their fucking job, is to cover politics, whether they like it or not. Okay, that's their fucking job. Just saying.
I think it's interesting because one of the 538 is a resource provided to you by ABC. So I thought it was interesting that they decided not to.
Yeah, whatever.
To cover it. Whatever. Whatever.
Yeah, honestly, the newspapers covered it. So.
And we will get into that too, including an opinion piece by the Washington Post, which we disagree with, and I will read some of it.
Yeah, I disagree with it, but I want to make one thing abundantly clear. It is not the first time I've disagreed with an opinion from the Post, but I consider the Post the finest newspaper in the United States.
Right.
And we will continue to use it factually and news-wise. It's brilliant. People disagree on certain issues and you live with that. That's just the way it is.
This is an opinion piece. It's not like they misstated the facts. Personally, I think they're splitting hairs, and we'll get into it a little bit. I'm afraid that some people will take this and run with it to go on an apology tour for the J6ers and the MAGAs, who apparently have a support group.
Yeah, they do. They have a support group because we don't have support groups for the fucking officers, including, we didn't have one for the 4 that committed suicide, but we have a support group for the insurrectionists because God help us, the little fucking right-wing snowflakes just can't take the heat. Maybe they should have thought about that before they broke into the Capitol.
Right. So let's
feel absolutely no empathy. None. Zero.
Right.
None.
So let's start. I believe that my opinion on this is that the New York Times is hitting it out of the park because they're just providing you with the information. This is from the New York Times. It's a full transcript of President Biden's Philadelphia speech. Now, let me just say this. I don't know who did this background and exactly where this is, but the red lights and all this, it's it's a background. Calm down. It's not the gates of hell. Freaking, right wingers are saying, "Oh, it's It's proof that he's Satan, that he's...
You know what? They're fucking crackheads. You know,
yeah, and they're gaslighters. I mean, they're gaslighters. Let's just...
Christ. And then they want me to fucking take them seriously. You know, forget it. It ain't happening. So,
the president described what he viewed as threats to democracy when he said stemmed from the action of former President Donald Trump and MAGA forces. MAGA forces are defined as staunch Trump supporters and those who support violence and the stripping of rights, by the way. And he defines it.
And on Twitter, we call them MAGAts. Just say it.
My fellow Americans, please, if you have a seat, take it. I like that, actually. I speak to you tonight from sacred ground in America, Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is where America made its declaration of independence to the world more than 2 centuries ago, with an idea unique among nations that in America, we are all created equal. This is where the United States Constitution was written and debated. This is where we set in motion the most extraordinary experiment of self-government the world has ever known. And yes, it is an experiment.
It is.
It is.
Democracy is an experiment. At the time this nation was formed, nobody was doing this.
Basically. With 3 simple words: we the people. We the people. These two, and by the way, he kind of romanticizes it a bit too much, because at the time, slavery was legal. Women didn't have the right to vote. Let's just be real. But I digress. These 2 documents and their ideas they embody, equality and democracy, are the rock upon which this nation is built. They are how we became the greatest nation on earth. They are why for more than 2 centuries, America has been a beacon to the world. But as I stand here tonight, equality and democracy are under assault. We do ourselves no favors to pretend otherwise or favor.
He's absolutely right.
So tonight I've come to this place where it all began, to speak as plainly as I can to the nation about the threats we face, about the power we have in our hands to meet these threats, and about the incredible future that lies in front of us if only we choose it. We must never forget, we the people are the true heirs of the American experiment that began more than 2 centuries ago. And again, as I said, it's an experiment, and it started not great.
No, but
blacks were slaves and women didn't have the right to vote.
Let me just say something though. The idea was for us to continually evolve and improve on it.
Correct.
That was the entire idea behind this entire experiment.
Yep. Not move backwards, by the way.
Government. It's not static. Okay.
Yep. We, the people, have burning inside of each of us the flame of liberty that was lit here at Independence Hall, a flame that lit our way through abolition. He's talking about it. The Civil War, suffrage, the Great Depression, World Wars, civil rights. That sacred flame still burns. Now on our time, as we build an America that is more prosperous, free, and just. That is my work of my presidency, a mission I believe in with my whole soul. But first, we must be honest with each other and ourselves. Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Tell me in that statement anything that isn't true.
No, it's absolutely spot on. If people can't see this every day in front of them at this point, I can't help them. I really can't.
Now I want to be very clear up front. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans, are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans. But there's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country. These are hard things, but I'm an American president, not a president of Red America or Blue America, but of all America. And I believe it is my duty to level with you, to tell the truth, no matter how difficult or painful. And here, in my view, is what is true. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. They refuse to accept the results of a free election. By the way, not just a presidential election, by the way.
Right.
Okay. Remember that. People with 5% of the vote are screaming in a primary, in a Republican primary. So, and they're working right now, as I speak, in state after state to give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies, empowering election deniers to undermine democracy itself. Again, true. Tina Peters is the one that comes to mind every single time.
Mark Fincham.
Mark Fincham. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love. They promote authoritarian leaders. They fan the flames of political violence that are a threat to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law, and to the very soul of this country.
All facts.
They look at the mob that stormed the United States Capitol on January 6th, brutally attacking law enforcement, not as insurrectionists who placed a dagger at the throat of our democracy, but they look at them as patriots. And they see their MAGA failure to stop a peaceful transfer of power after the 2020 election as preparation for the 2022 and 2024 elections. They tried everything last time to nullify the votes of 81 million people. Now, this time, they're determined to succeed in thwarting the will of the people. That's why respected conservatives like federal circuit court judge Michael Ludick has called Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans a clear and present danger to our democracy. But while the threat to American democracy is real, I want to say as clearly as we can, we are not powerless in the face of these threats. We are not bystanders in this ongoing attack of democracy. There are far more Americans from every background and belief who reject the extreme MAGA ideology than those that accept it. And folks, it's within our power, it's in our hands, yours and mine, to stop the assault on American democracy. I believe America is at an inflection point, one of those moments that determine the shape of everything that's to come after. And now America must choose to move forward or to move backwards, to build a future or obsess about the past, to be a nation of hope and unity and optimism, or a nation of fear, division, and darkness. MAGA Republicans have made their choice. They embrace anger, they thrive on chaos, they live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies. But together we can choose a different path. We can choose a better path toward the future, a future of possibility, a future to build a dream and hope, and we're on that path moving ahead. I know this nation, I know you, the American people, I know your courage, I know your hearts, I know our history. This is a nation that honors our Constitution. We do not reject it. This is a nation that believes in the rule of law. We do not repudiate it. This is a nation that respects free and fair elections. We honor the will of the people. We do not deny it. And this is a nation that rejects violence as a political tool. We do not encourage violence. We are still an America that believes in honesty and decency and respect for others. Patriotism, liberty, justice for all, hope, possibilities are still at our core a democracy. And yet history tells us that blind loyalty to a single leader and willingness to engage in political violence is fatal to democracy. And by the way, loyalty to Biden too. Biden's made his mistakes. He should, he should pardon Assange. I agree with all that. So before anybody says that, so there's a little bit more. I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's pretty, it's pretty long, but you get the gist of it.
And so let me just say this. I don't understand what's divisive about that.
Right.
It's bullshit. That's bullshit. I find that totally absurd. Okay. Everything that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth every night he's on the campaign trail or whatever the fuck he's doing out there, because right now he hasn't even announced. He's out there still whining about the election and still sticking his hand out for money. He's on the please woe is me tour. That's what this is. Okay. And every night he is divisive about somebody or something or one group of people. Every night.
This is just a little bit of the response of the Washington Post. And this is from the editorial staff, by the way, and I believe, when is this? So September 2nd, okay, the editorial board. So this isn't one person. This was a committee decision to write this. It is a depressing reflection of the dangerous political situation in which the nation finds itself, that President Biden felt compelled to deliver a primetime address decrying political violence and election denialism and calling on Americans to unite behind the single purpose of defending our democracy. Why? Indeed, democracy is under assault in the United States. Rallying to its defense is an urgent task, and it does the nation no service to pretend that this is a problem of bipartisan dimensions. He didn't say that this, I mean, it is to a certain degree. The Republicans aren't all MAGA. Okay.
He said that.
He said it.
He stated it right in the speech. So that's bullshit. Okay. In my opinion, it's bullshit.
The leader of one party peddled a false belief that the 2020 presidential election was stolen, sought to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, indicted his adherents to storm the Capitol, and continues to stir anger and unrest. Again, they're agreeing with Biden here. So, as Mr. Biden put it in Philadelphia on Thursday night, too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. So the difficult, perhaps insurmountable challenge that Mr. Biden confronted just 8 weeks before the midterm was how to convey the message of defending democracy in a way that summons patriotism rather than partisanship. So I want them to hear this. What they're basically saying here is that Joe Biden is absolutely right. Donald Trump is sowing seeds of division. He's stirring people up. He's stirring up anger, but we shouldn't call him out. So Mr. Biden was wrong to conflate the upholding the rule of law with his own partisan agenda, which he called the work of democracy. I'm going to wait. I don't know where that went. But this is again, we agree with the Washington Post most of the time. So this is the paragraph, in all honesty, that I want Deb to hear. Because I want to, number one, I want to get her reaction, and number two, this is the core of the argument. I think that we, as the left, we tend to overthink things and worry about what people are going to think when we shouldn't. When the people who or the opposition, they don't give a crap what we think. So let's see here. It's okay. I don't know how long she's going to be gone, so I'm just going to read it. Mr. Biden was wrong to conflate the upholding the rule of law with his own partisan agenda, which he called the work of democracy. You can be for democracy, but against the president's policy proposals to use government to lower prescription drug prices and combat climate change. That's not what we're talking about. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love, Mr. Biden proclaimed. But that many conservatives, not just MAGA forces, agree with the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. Here we go. So I'm going to read this again. All right, Deb, I'm going to repeat this because this is the paragraph I want you to. Your head's going to blow off.
Yeah, probably will.
All right. So this is.
I got multiple holes in it already.
This is the paragraph in which I wholly disagree with the Washington Post on. They're overthinking and they're trying to be friends with everybody, and you just can't do that.
Right.
Mr. Biden was wrong to conflate upholding the rule of law with his own partisan agenda, which he called the work of democracy. That's BS in my opinion, but whatever. You can be for democracy, but against the president's policy proposals to use government to lower prescription drug prices and combat climate change. That's regular Republican stuff. That's not MAGA Republican stuff.
That's right.
MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love, Mr. Biden proclaimed. But many conservatives, not just MAGA forces, agree with Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. Overturning Roe v. Wade gives the power to the states, doesn't give the power to the states to throw people in jail for having, they're taking it to an extreme.
And by the way, let me just stop you right here.
Yeah.
It's one thing to return the decision on Roe v. Wade to the states. It's another one to be out there threatening every fucking day that you will pass a national abortion ban if you're put back in power. Every single day we hear it. There is a woman out there right now filing a national bill to criminalize transgender care. I'm tired of the bullshit, okay? They are missing the fucking point here.
They are. And by the way, it goes both ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's disappointing that Mr. Biden chose to admit that infrastructure, gun control, and burn pits legislation he praised and passed with Republican votes. He wasn't attacking the Republicans. He said he's worked with Republicans before. You're not going to, in a speech, getting people worked up to vote for Democrats, you're not going to mention the burn pit stuff. And by the way, if you're going to talk about the burn pit stuff, talk about how much they had to drag them across the freaking playing field to get them to sign it.
Excuse me. Let me just make one thing clear about the burn pit thing. The bill came up. It passed on a bipartisan level. They had to return it because they had to make a change to something that was wrong. All right. And when they went back and voted on it a second time, 25 of those Republicans refused to vote for it again. You know what? I'm tired of hearing it. It's bullshit. Okay. Biden was very clear about who he was talking about. He was very clear in his speech.
Yes, he was. He's not going to praise them like this. He's not going to do that. Pointing this out would have actually strengthened his effort to draw a contrast between MAGA Republicans and MAGA. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
This is
I know
where
what
they're
he's saying.
going.
Right, and I know what they're doing. So blah 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 blah. Bye bye. Okay.
Yeah. I disagree with this. They're saying we have to unite people. Listen, they're either going to get it or they're not.
That's right.
We're not talking about you. We are.
We're not going to unite with fascists. End of story. And by the way, what makes anyone think they want to unite with us? They're trying to wipe out an entire swath of the fucking nation. So shut up.
There are two stories in here where Peter Doocy from Fox News asked Biden about if he thinks that all Trump supporters are bad people, blah, blah, blah. Again, he pointed it out again. He said, I'm not talking about everybody. I'm talking about those who support violence and stripping rights.
Right.
He said it again.
And unfortunately, Donald Trump is one of those people.
Right.
And unfortunately, plenty of the Republican Party this time around is one of those people.
And by the way, 7 Republican leaders endorsed Josh Shapiro over Doug Mastriano. Now, I don't think it's just because he wore a Confederate military uniform. I think it's because he's insane. So there are Republicans who will separate themselves from MAGA Republicans.
Right.
Mastriano is supported by Trump. He is a MAGA Republican.
He's now in the process of suing the J6 committee after appearing in front of them and taking the fifth through the entire thing. He spent 15 minutes with them and walked out. He is now suing the J6 committee, stating that they don't have any subpoena rights. Well, you should have told them that a year and a half ago, asshole. And by the way, it wasn't just the Confederate military uniform. That was the straw that broke the camel's back for these people. All right.
Right.
Because he wore the Confederate military uniform after stating that they wanted to wipe out our history. We don't want to wipe out the history. We just want to tell them the truth about the Confederate military and that whole bunch of shit. Right. We're not the ones trying to hide it. They are.
Now, what I will tell Joe Biden and all these other people might get sick and tired of hearing about it. But maybe, just maybe, if they continue to talk about it, the Republicans will pull back on some of this legislation too. Okay? That's part of the game too. You need this shit to stop. You need all the anti-trans bills, anti-voting bills, all of this. By the way, we have Supreme Court cases coming, stripping voting rights potentially, or strengthening gerrymandering.
Right.
So there's a lot at stake. Biden is talking about one facet here. If people don't get it, they don't get it. But that's what it is. If you are busting through a window at the Capitol, you're not a peaceful patriot and you're not a tourist.
Right. And if you're busting through a window and you're being told to stop and you don't stop, you are subject to being shot if you don't stop. That's a reality.
Ashley Babbitt is not a hero and she's not a martyr. Stop already. Now, some of this, what's going on and what Biden's talking about, is having ramifications. It is. In the California desert, LGBTQ voters could sway a key House race.
That's Palm Springs.
There we go. Yep. So we have Ken Calvert.
Who live there, by the way.
Yep.
They went there because it's gay. So
yeah. Ken Calvert has served, I think, 6 terms. This is the first time in forever that he has a real shot at losing.
Right.
So I'm trying to remember the name of the gentleman. So let me see. G. Come on now. All right, so that's Ken Calvert. It just screams Republican. So well, what's the name of the guy? Ah, there we go. Will Rollins. Okay. He has a real shot because this area was this was a redistricted area. And now they have Paul Strings in the area. So he has a fight on his hands now.
Can you is there any information about this guy in there anywhere?
Hold on. There is, and that's what I was looking for. Let's see. Mr. Rollins, whose work as a federal prosecutor focused on counterterrorism and counterintelligence, has not made any gay rights the main thrust of his campaign. When he said he decided to take after the attack on the Capitol. He's centers his message on preserving democracy and improving the economy, but has said that civil rights protections were embedded in these goals. So he's another guy that decided to run. This is kind of the same thing as the what's the name of the lady in what's her name? In New York.
Yeah, in New York, but there's also Mr. Obergefell, who is running in Ohio, who was one of the plaintiffs in the gay marriage.
Right.
In the gay marriage win in the Supreme Court. So he's actually running for public office too. He actually ran as a Democrat unopposed in the primary. So
and the female, the lady who took over for Liz Cheney, her name escapes me. She has real opposition now with someone also who was in counterintelligence and worked in the CIA. So this is kind of a running theme too. You see some of these guys running because of this. So as he worked with volunteers in his campaign office on a recent afternoon writing postcards to prospective voters, Mr. Rollins argued that he represented the region better than Mr. Calvert did, calling the lawmakers' voting record an example of how pandering to the extremes is just a losing political strategy. So we're seeing a shift.
Yep.
And we're actually seeing a shift in real time in some of these polling websites. I have a few here. I have three actually. The first one is the Cook Political Report. Now, this I looked at the Cook Partisan Voting Index. That's actually a very large report, but you have to pay like $300 and some for it. I'm not going that route, but this is here for your viewing, and it has several articles. What I did want to show you is the About Us, the history. Founded in 1984, the Cook Political Report is an independent, nonpartisan newsletter that analyzes elections and campaigns for the U.S. House of Representatives, U.S. Senate, governors, and presidents, as well as American political trends. So this was started by Cook, who worked for both Republican and Democratic politicians. So this is actually this was the story that I saw. I want to just clarify something. Peltola, and there was another special election won by a Democrat that was considered a great victory. These two are going to have to reclaim their seat for another 2 years in November. So she defeated, what's her name? Oh my God, Sarah Palin. Yeah, she defeated Sarah Palin, and of course everybody decried, oh, it's ranked choice voting, it's rigged elections, blah 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 blah. Well, she has enough.
It isn't that they lost because their policies and their bullshit is wildly unpopular. It immediately goes to the election is rigged. That's all they're going to do now. That's their whole reason for being.
So again, I'm just saying that if you want to know some things, in a non-partisan way, it was interesting because after June, after the Roe v. Wade overturning decision, all of a sudden these polling stories changed direction. House overviews, GOP control no longer a foregone conclusion.
Good.
Pretty much every single one of these websites said that it was a foregone conclusion because of the redistricting,
right,
and some of the gerrymandering that they did. And now that some of these special elections are coming through, it's really no longer a full foregone conclusion.
Let me just say this, losing the House and the Senate in the middle of the first term is something that happens historically, okay, in America. But and it happens to both parties. It's not just one or the other. But right now, what is happening here in America, this is not a normal situation. We are in the middle of an extraordinary fucking mess here. I mean, we literally are on the doorstep of fascism, whether people want to believe it or not. I mean, the information that's out there, the stuff that's going down every single day, it should be making that abundantly clear to people. We have an opportunity to break that pattern, and we need to do it. Okay, we don't need to lose the House and the Senate. It isn't a foregone conclusion, and we need to change that paradigm. People are the ones who can change that, and that's what we need to do.
So let me see. There are, the coin is in the air for the Senate. Red wave looks more like a ripple. That's August. Flip the script. I mean, it from June, they were like, the Republicans are going to take it, blah, blah, blah. And now it's moving.
Yep.
And we have key races. I'm going to go into key races, another time, but
in the meantime, while you're waiting for us to go into key races on video, you can be looking at the website, because I haven't put the House in yet. I'm going to work on that tomorrow, but I have put the Senate and the governors in there.
Right. I mean, and what I'm going to do is start going through the House. The House is very complicated because you have hundreds of these races, hundreds of them.
Every House seat is up.
Every single House seat is up. So this is another Politico forecast. Okay. Now, we had, let's see here. There we go. The Senate leans Republican, likely Republican. This is changing as we speak, actually.
It is.
So there were some races that were 15% Republican, like special election races, 15% Republican. Now they're down to 6%.
Right.
By the way, those races are going to be put up again in November as well. So, if we continue the momentum, who knows? We might be able to grab another House seat or so. But this is another one. with Politico involved. This is the first one. They're basically saying that the Republicans were leaning, but I don't think they've updated it yet.
No, they haven't.
538 updates it pretty much every, let me see here. So there are stories pretty much every single day. So maybe not over the weekend, the holiday weekend. Let's see here.
This site is totally statistically driven. Most of this site is statistically driven.
Why conservative voters support liberal ballot measures. Why Trump's president in the midterms is risky for the GOP. Gee, I wonder why. Because he's a nutcase. Why is Biden's approval rating going up? What the Democratic win in Alaska tells us about November. Right now, the Democrats are trending up. Now, if there's a major event, who knows what happens? There's some sports stuff in here too. Let's see. What Biden's raising approve. Say they always talk about approval ratings. Are more women really registering to vote post-ops? Yeah, they actually are. Let's see here. Why Republican voters support ballot initiatives or red states do not. This was more Democrats leaving the House that could help Republicans win. Again, statistics driven. Trump's endorsees started losing more. Don't read that into 2024. I mean, for anyone to think we've got 2024 in the bag, you're crazy.
Yeah. We can't worry about 2024 right now. If we don't take 2022, there is virtually no hope for 2024. I'm just going to say that.
These are the ones that I wanted to show. I'm not going to read them out, but this is the stuff that there's plenty of articles for you to read in here. Election denying primary candidates are crying fraud, win or lose. Kaylee Rogers. Okay, Americans don't want books banned, but they're divided over what schools teach. Zohar Kamar. It's official. Democrats are performing better after the abortion ruling. They also have a podcast, by the way. This is one, I believe I put it in one of our previous ones. Special elections really are signaling a better than expected midterm for Democrats. Now, it's a signal. Again, these are going back up, and people need to stop thinking we have won Alaska. We need to just keep
going. We need to just keep pushing. It's not over.
It's a great sign, but Sarah Palin can still win. They can consolidate, voters. Although Begich, I think he's going to continue to run. But Begich is the other Republican guy, or he's a libertarian, I think. He could say, okay, I'll let Sarah Palin has more votes. They don't want to vote for her.
Right.
There are people who say they'd rather vote for Begich and Palin. If he's out, they're not going to vote.
Right.
So here's the problem too. She is not a popular candidate.
Nope.
So this is, and as Deb said, the data sets we're looking at this week, this is all data driven, by the way.
You need more than data.
Now, the next one, the final one, this is the AFL-CIO website. I caught this story. This is the small paper, Los Alamos Daily Post, talking about the AFL-CIO launching the largest organizing drive in history. This is a big, huge deal. If you take a look at their website, first, this is tomorrow. If you want to go out there, check. I'll show you the website. There's a map there. You can check. There is something, I'd have to go to Manhattan. I'm not doing that. Not in the climate, because I'm not taking the train right now. But if something's near you, go for it. I do want to, show a couple of things. This is one thing that they mentioned. The U.S. approval of labor unions is at its highest point since 1965. For a long time, the unions have been in a defensive position. But now you have wins from Starbucks, and you also have wins from from Amazon union organizers. And the union movement is gaining momentum. I'm a little different because I'm in a governmental union. Okay, but private unions are very difficult to start and organize. It takes a lot.
By the way, with regard to Starbucks, he came back. What's his name there?
Yeah, Howard Schultz.
Howard Schultz came back to be a union buster. He every time he leaves, and then he comes back every time there's talk about a union. And by the way, I took Dahlia to her doctor's appointment on Friday in that Starbucks in Alston, heading towards Alston in the Boston area. They're still on strike from the last time I was in there 2 months ago.
Right.
So that location is shut down.
What are the issues in is it wages or is it working conditions?
It's a lot of stuff. It's wages, it's working conditions, safety issues.
Okay.
I believe the one on, I don't know if the one on Boylston Street in Boston is still on strike or not. Talia doesn't work at Starbucks anymore. She left, but her store on Boylston wasn't the one on strike. The one further down was. So they were on strike too, but he can only stop that for so long. And then, it's eventually it's gonna move forward. So.
Now I just set it to different parts of this, but it's one web page, so you just have to navigate it.
Yep.
Labor Day of 2022. They have several different events. See, all in the United States, and you just have to check the map and see if you want to go.
Right.
It's worker rights, it's union rights. If you're looking to, organize a union, might be something you're interested in.
Yeah.
Our priorities: electing pro-worker legislators in the Senate and House will be critical to protecting our freedom to vote, control our own bodily freedoms, both inside and outside the workplace, and so much more. So this also involves healthcare, maybe FMLA issues, sick leave dependent care issues, that kind of stuff. Freedom to form a union. There is a lot of union busting out there.
Yep.
This is what I wanted to get to. The AFL-CIO is getting to battleground states. They're getting into recruiting voters, which is a huge thing. We're getting back to this in a union capacity. Typically, they're just like promoting, hey, go Hillary Clinton, or make sure that you donate to your union PAC. This is different. They are kicking off a massive voter mobilization effort to elect pro-worker candidates in November, aiming to empower working people, make the difference in scores of close races across the country. So here, this is their official statement. So more than 100,000 volunteers to engage millions of working people in one-on-one conversations. I probably couldn't do this, but they're having text banking. They're having all sorts of stuff. So if you're in these states, these are the battleground states that they have picked up. Arizona.
Accurate. Those are pretty much the battleground states that are in the United States too.
Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. So, but I don't know why Wisconsin would be on there, because we have someone who is advocating for bringing retirees back into the workforce and allowing them not to pay payroll taxes. I have that in here, by the way. That's my last slide. So
well, that's why they're there.
The AFL-CIO and affiliate unions will not only focus our attention on union members, we will also reach out to working people who are not yet in a union but share union values. A significant focus will be placed on engagement with demographics that have lower voter turnout, including young workers, people of color, women, and others. And by the way, we're not talking about unions get this bad rap of, oh, we're just there to defend the guys who are messing up and never come to work and blah, blah, blah. Part of it, I'm not going to deny it, but this is to promote safety in the workplace, safe work environments, OSHA regulations. You
mean like working without air conditioning?
With people getting paid correctly, all of that proper, not being fired because they're using FMLA.
Right.
I've heard a lot of that outside of government jobs. A lot of that. So.
I remember when I worked at Starbucks in Reading.
Yeah.
And, at one time, Starbucks, every single location used to have a company that had their own keys to let themselves in at night. And once a month, they would come in and do a deep cleaning, because we can clean every night, and we did, but we can't get under counters and, clean the grease traps and all that stuff. So they decided, after I'd been there for about 3 or 4 years, that they weren't going to do that anymore. They were going to put that on the backs of the workers. And we had this old guy that was an attorney, but he was pretty old. He was retired. He was only working part-time, taking specific cases. But he came in one time and saw this girl I work with on the floor with a toothbrush cleaning the grout. Okay. And he said right in front of the manager, if you had a union, you wouldn't be doing that shit. And it was hysterical. But I think that was actually part of what spurred people on.
Right.
To get going on that.
Right. And by the way, right to work isn't right to work.
No.
It's union busting. It's union busting.
Yeah. It's called, you have a right to work even though we're underpaying you and putting you in danger.
Right.
Work.
Exactly.
Especially if we're doing that shit.
So here's the last one. Just Ron Johnson. I wanted to put this in here because he is in one of the states that they are targeting. And this is probably part of the reason why he wants to coax seniors out of retirement so they can earn a few extra bucks and ease the labor shortage.
Fuck you. Okay. Couple of comments here. Ron Johnson is also continually talking about making Social Security and Medicare non-required budgeting items. Okay. This is the first senator now that is openly talking about getting rid of Social Security and Medicare, something that neither side has been willing to even do because it is untouchable. This guy has $48 million in personal wealth. He has doubled his income since taking office 3 terms ago, okay? He needs to be voted out. My last poll was that he was down 7 to his Democratic rival. That needs to continue. This guy is a major, major seat shift if they can win this state. He needs to go, okay? He doesn't have to worry about putting food on the table or keeping a roof over his head. But I'm living on that Social Security and I'm living on that Medicare, and I care very much that they stick around.
By the way, all of these things that you get once you retire, you pay into.
Yeah, let's talk about that. These aren't entitlements. So even if you were to attain no tax status, you would keep, you are not allowed to opt out of Social Security or Medicare under any circumstance. It is required that you pay that every paycheck, every pay cycle. Those are benefits that people like me who have worked now for 50 years have paid into. I'm entitled to those earned benefits. The Republicans continue to call them entitlements. That is, again, being mislabeled on purpose. They call it socialism. That's bullshit. We pay a lot of money into both Medicare and Social Security so that we have those programs when we no longer can work.
When
you're working, when you're coaxing people out of retirement, you're working for fucking 16 and 18 bucks an hour if you're lucky, because the minimum wage in this country isn't even $15 yet. Some people are only making $11 an hour. It's ridiculous.
And here's what I say about that proposal. Even if he wasn't talking about getting rid of, Social Security and Medicare, let's say he's putting that on the table and he's a Republican. I want to know what the catch is. Not paying payroll tax. And let's you want to wheel and deal? Let's wheel and deal for 2 seconds. Fine. Let's have a graduated declining of payroll tax. When you're a kid or when you're starting out, you pay a higher payroll tax. But as you get older, you're paying less and less. How's that? So that when you're coming back for retirement, you're not paying anything. But when you could have retired and you're still working, you're not paying anything either.
Can I just make one thing very clear here? If you are coaxing seniors out of retirement, you are not going into the workforce to work a white collar job where payroll taxes make a fucking difference. You're talking about saving a couple of bucks on somewhere between $11 and $15 an hour.
You're talking about retail. You're talking about line order cooks. You're talking about stuff like that. That's what to me, that's what you're talking about. You're not talking about guys who, by the way, could there be some executives slide in and not pay payroll tax? Absolutely. Yeah. But you're not really talking about that.
You're not talking about 70-year-old people. You can't, you know what? I tried to get a job in industry back into my field when I was 50 years old. I couldn't get a fucking job. I couldn't get a job in that field. That's why I went into retail. That's utter bullshit.
Right.
It's
exactly.
utter bullshit. Okay.
Anytime a Republican floats an idea like that, my first response is, what is the catch?
My first response is bend over, I'll drive. Okay. That's what my first response is, because that's what they're telling you to do.
Right.
Sorry to be, divisive, but you know what? Fuck you. Okay.
He's gonna tell you that we're going to take away your Social Security. We're going to take away your Medicare. We're going to take away your Medicaid. But don't worry, you don't have to pay any payroll tax.
Did you hear Carrie Lake? Did you hear her with homeless people?
No.
Her comments on homeless people. It's fucking outrageous. We're going to drive them out of the state.
Yeah.
What the fuck? I just, and then we have to put up with, we need to be more inclusive. I don't need to be inclusive here, okay? I really don't. Don't give me that shit. That's gaslighting, as far as I'm concerned.
No, it is. And I understand where the Washington Post was coming from.
I do too.
To a small degree, but cut the crap.
That's not where the people are coming from, unfortunately.
I mean, come on.
Right. So there we are, folks. That it for the night?
Yeah, for now. Guys, I didn't mention that many candidates, but these websites are stellar. Check out AFL-CIO if you want to go somewhere, or if there is a questionnaire or something to fill out if you want to get involved with them, and you are especially if you are part of a union, They list my union, which I thought was amazing. We normally don't get involved in that kind of thing, but it's like they have all the different unions in there. And I think it's worthwhile at least to contact them, and also worthwhile to check out where they are focusing their attention. Georgia, Wisconsin, I thought Minnesota was interesting, Ohio. Yeah, so nine states. So we're obviously
and Ohio is where the other shitbag is. I forget.
Jordan?
Yeah. Jim Jordan.
Right.
So that's it. And yes, our website has an awful lot of information in it. Literally, I can't, tell you how many references we have. I can't tell you how many, downloadable reports we have. It's all out there. It'll be at the bottom of it's at the bottom of every single video. All you got to do is click on it and go look.
By the way, the website is an aggregate, has a lot of the stuff that I present, and I give it to her. I believe the transcript from the New York Times is, if she wants that, she's going to put that in there. Deb is amazing when it comes to this kind of thing. There's a ton of stuff in there, but also the individual websites, the Cook Report. The Cook Report seems to be the Bible for a lot of the people when it comes to polling. That's what you see a lot of, like news reports, like from the New York Times or Business Insider or whatever. They always quote the Cook Report. So it may not be always what you want to hear, but it's considered a bipartisan source for that kind of information. And pretty much everybody is saying the same thing, that the tide is turning, and there hopefully are going to be some seats that flip. Not everything's going to flip. Please understand that too. And also understand that even if we do have a majority in both the House and the Senate, number one, things aren't going to happen right away. And number two, we still have work to do.
We do.
Our job isn't done.
We do. I mean, if we hold the House, this is the job here. We need to hold the House. We have a 9-seat, actually we have 11-seat majority right at the moment.
At the moment.
2 special elections. We need to hang on to those. We need to hold the House, and we need to expand the Senate so that the filibuster is not a factor, because they will use that. And by the way, just so you understand the preview of what's going to happen if they win the House and the Senate, the Republicans, they're not going to do any work. They are simply going to spend their time, as Matt Gaetz said, every committee will be an oversight committee. We will investigate the Democrats for 2 years and stop everything they're doing. Understand what their goal is. They do not legislate. They do not legislate. They don't even know how to fucking write legislation. Whatever legislation they write, go look at Marjorie Taylor Greene's legislation. English only in America, banning transgender care. They don't legislate on behalf of the American people. They legislate to oppress, and they obstruct. That is their forte. And you know what? That's why they're dangerous.
Finally, if you want a reformed Supreme Court, you get out there and you vote, especially the Senate. I don't think it's going to happen this time. I hope it can happen this time. And by the way, I hope that we get, I don't know, a 5-6, let's say we get a 5-6 Senate majority. We do the same thing to them that they did to us with Merrick Garland, and we put some House seat or put some Supreme Court seats in. Yep. Screw them. Yep. Screw them. We put the balance of power back.
Right.
Because right now it's skewed. Hopefully, this is enough to get everyone on board to add a couple of seats. To me, it needs to be at least 2 because of Amy Coney Barrett and because of the Merrick Garland situation.
Amy
Okay.
Coney Barrett, by the way, if you look it up, she was the least qualified of any Supreme Court justice ever in history. Really. No qualifications for that position, okay? Other than the fact that she was a radical Catholic, you know, she's a
Are we talking nominated or are we talking about justice that got in?
That has gotten in. She's
Okay.
the least qualified of anybody I've ever seen. There's information out there on that.
Right. I mean, Robert Bork was pretty damn out there, but he might have been considered kind of a middle of the road candidate at this point. That's how crazy it's gotten.
Yep.
Robert Bork was way out there.
Yep.
And it was amazing that Reagan even appointed him, and then he appointed Sandra Day.
I'm not surprised about Reagan.
Well,
come on.
I'm just saying. Well, back in the day, they were surprised. They actually were. Back in the day, it just would have been. Then one more thing, Joni Ernst. Joni Ernst. Does anybody remember how crazy Joni Ernst was? Now she's just part of the gang.
Yeah, she looks normal now, almost. I mean, come on, let's put Joni Ernst, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lauren Boebert on a stage together. Which one would you pick for the most normal? I'd have to pick Joni Ernst.
Right. Just put her in an apron and freaking, have her bake cookies. I mean, she's like the least dangerous now, and that's insane.
Because I remember when she got in, I thought she was bad. Now we have a congresswoman from Georgia who thinks there's no electricity if you have solar power and the sun isn't out. I don't even want to go there. I can't,
Deb, I mean, come on, let's stop talking about that. We got we got enough trees.
Right.
Yeah, oh my God.
Yeah. He's got to lose too, Herschel Walker.
Oh, please.
Yep.
All right, guys.
All right, kids. We'll talk to you next week. I'm going to shut down the recording.